Good afternoon, everybody. This is Hunter Mozingo bringing you your daily market insight video for Monday, June 28th. It is 4:16 p.m. Eastern Time here in Jacksonville, Florida. And in today's edition of the Daily Market Insight video, we are going to break down how you can utilize charts. And by charts, I really mean facts. And that means price, volume, moving averages, resistance, support, etc., to evaluate or identify changes in character in sectors or stocks. And we're going to get to that towards the end of the video. However, before we get to that, allow me to go over what just happened today. And you can see on the left-hand side of your screen there in the yellow text, growth leads while value sectors stumble, evidenced by the Qs being up 1.22% today, while the other indices were either flat or down. The S&P up 0.23%, Dow down about 0.5%, mid caps down roughly 1%, and the Russell 2000 down 0.5% as well. Market state remains in an uptrend. However, we're still seeing some very strong action in the market. Really, it was a few sectors that kind of dragged down the Dow, even the S&P, mid caps and small caps. We're going to get to that here in just a moment when we get to the charts. The market trend, or the protection gauge on the right side of the screen here, remains the same. Market leaders continues to be bullish. Short-term, mid-term, and long-term stay bullish, as well as 4 of the 5 major indices are above those moving averages. Mid-caps giving us a little bit of trouble as they dip back down a little bit today, but we'll look at that chart here in just a second as well. Before we get to the charts, however, allow me to reference the team at Revere as I always do. That is me in the middle, Hunter Mozingo. If you have any questions, any comments, you want to know more about a specific stock I covered or some specific comments I made in the video, just send me an email, hunter@revereasset.com. I'm happy to answer your questions, happy to communicate with you guys, and I'll respond relatively quickly as well. You can also reach out to any of these guys, Dan, Tim, Alex, or Don at revereasset.com if you want to talk to them, or if you're interested in knowing more about our strategy. I'm sure they would be happy to respond to you as well. So let's get straight into the charts, folks. We're going to go to the S&P 500 first here. And you can see roughly 1.3% here above the 21 EMA. That's the green line, and about 2% above the 50. So a little bit extended on a very short-term basis for the S&P here, but nothing extremely out of the ordinary or something to be worried about by any means. I don't feel, I mean, you can see on this run here, the S&P stayed roughly 5% or more above the 50-day moving average for quite some time, stayed anywhere from 1.5% to 3% above the 21 for quite some time. So just because it's had a nice little run here over the last 5 days or so doesn't mean that that run can't continue. The Qs, the leader of the day, 1.22%, pushing past this 350 level here, the previous high of 351.46, and looking very strong. This one is a little bit more extended. You can see 3% above the 21, 5% above the 50, but no doubt whatsoever that this is the leading index, and you can see the relative strength here picking up and hooking up, especially since this day here, moving upward nicely on the Qs. The small caps are looking better than the mid caps. You can see they held their moving averages here above the 21 by about 1%, kind of sitting slightly above the 8-day. IWM continues to look better than mid caps, which I've said this in a few previous videos. For a while, it was the opposite way around. Earlier in the year, mid caps looked a lot better than small caps. You can see this has just been a chop fest really since February, or really this spot here at the beginning of February. It just hasn't been able to do much, up and down, but really not too far off of highs here, only about 1.5% or 2% from making all-time highs. Something to keep an eye on for small caps there. And mid caps, I mentioned kind of the laggard of the group. They did get back above the 50 and the 21 on Friday. Today, really getting adversely impacted by some weak sectors. Slightly below the 21, just 0.2%, or 20 basis points, excuse me, and about 0.5% below the 50-day moving average. I would look for possibly a strong reclaim, or even if you see a nice break of these highs here right around 497, that would be an encouraging some encouraging action for mid caps. And lastly, for the indices, the Dow holding up above the 21 and the 50 by about 1/10 or 1/10 of a percent, and then 2/10 of a percent on the 21. So just slightly above the 50 and the 21 here. I know it's hard to see them, but they're more or less converged right here on the 342 level. And you can see the Dow is at 342.80 or DIA. So we're going to look at interest rates very quickly. I know I've covered those a decent bit in my recent videos. I want to touch on them real quick because they did make a nice move today. TLT up, which means that rates or yields are down. TLT bouncing off the 21 EMA, reclaiming the 8-day. Conversely, the 10-year yield here down 3.8% today, essentially reversing into the 21, although it slightly got above it. Not sure that the technical analysis applies as well as it does with stocks, for example, but it is important to note you're watching, or I'm watching this low here around 1450, 1440, and how it acts at that area. If it breaks it, that's something I want to be aware of, which ideally is probably going to be good for growth stocks like you saw today. And also the dollar essentially going flat for the better part of the last 4 or 5 trading days, which has seemed to also bolster growth stocks as well. So let's get into the leaders of the day first. Grow Generation, monster day, up 12% on 83% above average volume. This is one that I was actually shaken out of in the beta test portfolio, my beta test portfolio last week, and one where I just bit the bullet and bought it back today on really solid strength. I bought it around 46.80. It continued higher. Just a monster day, and you don't see the 100-day moving average, but let me see if I can pull it up for you guys here. Got the 8, and I'm probably going to change it back to the 8 after we do this, but back through the 100-day moving average, as you can see, ran right into it, reversed lower, and got back above it today, moving the 100-day moving average right at 46.50. Big time move for this stock, although other weed stocks really didn't do a whole lot, but this one certainly did. Next, Bitcoin had a strong day today, actually flirted with / got back above the 200-day moving average. I know you don't see that here on this GBTC chart, but as a reminder, GBTC is not a perfect or accurate representation in regards to moving averages of Bitcoin. So the 200-day moving average for Bitcoin is right around 34,700. It's flirted with that pretty much all day today, got above it a little bit, came back below it, but a strong day so far, and an area that's shaping up a little bit. You saw the Bitcoin related names or the crypto related names like Silvergate, MicroStrategy have a good day today as well. Next, solar, which had a monster move. Both of these that I'm going to cover are owned in my beta test portfolio. I actually trimmed some in phase today as it is extremely extended, as you can see, and I'm actually going to switch the 100-day moving average back to the 8-day exponential here as we look at some of these leading stocks. Okay, so I trimmed a little bit of this as it was extended, like I said, but nonetheless, big time strong move for solar. You can throw a dart at really any of the names in the space. Most of them had a really nice day today. TAN is the strictly solar ETF, and you can see the volume and the strong move above the 200-day moving average here on TAN. This is also owned in my beta test portfolio, so a little bit of double dipping, but a very strong move. And QCLN, Don owns this in Grotection. We actually took a little bit of gains as we had about an 8% gain in this position in a very quick matter of time. This has a little bit more of balance. It's not strictly solar. It's got some Tesla, some NEO, a lot of different sector exposure, but it's a clean energy ETF, and one that was actually looking better than some of the other clean energy ETFs like iClean, for example, ICLN. You can check that one out if you want to as well. Roku, a position we started last week in Grotection and added a little bit to it today and at the end of the day on Friday. very strong action today, up another 2%. You can see the volume here over the last week and a half or so. Just a really monumental move. Some accumulation certainly going on here in this name. Very strong for Roku. I believe I covered this as one of the leading stocks you have to pay attention to, and it certainly is. Another one that's in that same group, NVIDIA, and the biggest individual stock position in Grotection, getting to 800 and actually slightly above it today, up 5% above average volume. Certainly one of the market leaders, if not the market leader at the current time. Another area that had a big move up today is the gene editing space. This is NTLA. You can see they were up 50% on massive volume, and that is due to an announcement on positive clinical data regarding their gene editing treatment that also boosted other names such as CRISPR. Their ticker symbol is CRSP. You can check them out. They had a decent day today, but certainly worth noting when you get a move like this, 50% on 1,600% above average volume. You got to throw this one on the watch list and watch it very, very closely. A few more strong ones today. Tesla up another 2.5%, holding up really well after a strong move here. And last but not least, Facebook having a really strong close to the end of the day. You can see the volume. They had an announcement that they win the dismissal of a antitrust case. So the volume really came in around 3 o'clock, 2:50 Eastern time. So you can check that out if you like as well, but really strong and one of the leaders in the big tech space here, Facebook. So let's go to a few that did not hold up so well today, and that is going to be the cruise lines and travel stocks. They really got hit hard today. Airlines, travel booking, and I believe there was some announcement of lockdowns. There was also some passengers testing positive for COVID on cruise ships. So just all around, not a good day for travel stocks. And I'll show you a few examples here. That was Carnival. This is American Airlines, really looking brutal. Expedia, a travel booking company, looks pretty similar. So these really getting hit on the chin today. Some other names that had a tough go of it. Ford. I mean, nothing wrong with this chart, but you saw Tesla was up. NIO is an electric vehicle maker in China. It was also up. So Ford struggling a little bit while those names are doing really well. GM, the same story. Just wanted to point that out as it seemed like a little bit of a shift in leadership per se to the leaders of old, the NIOs, the Teslas, those types of names acting better than Ford and GM at the moment. And you also saw some names like FCX get hit pretty hard, just not, and I say pretty hard, 1.3%, but this action is exactly what I'm talking about here as far as a change in character, not able to get over a declining moving average and then heading lower today. We also got stopped out of two names in Grotection today. Nucor stopped out as it broke the 50 here. Very small loss on this, about a 4% loss on a 2.5% position. And then CLF, same story, stopped out as it broke the 21, right here around 21's right around $21, and broke it today. Just not really constructive action, not much follow through following the infrastructure bill here. So let's talk about using charts to identify changes in character. And I'm going to use a couple of examples here, and I'm going to do this relatively quickly. But first, I want to look at Palantir and NIO, and we're going to compare those two to FCX and NUE. So I'm going to pull up Palantir here. And this is the February, or this is the end of January. Palantir went on a monster move. This is the middle of February. You can see this brutal sell-off from 45 down to 20. And when I talk about a change in character, this stock and growth stocks in particular were very strong up until this point. And they try to make a comeback here, as you can see, but not really able to get anything going above the 21 EMA. Get above it for a few days, but no real follow through on it. They got above it here, broke it the next day, reclaimed it. Just not great action. Reverses lower. Tries again right here, gets above it, runs into a declining 50-day moving average. Not able to really get anything going. comes down lower, and then finally runs into the declining 50 one more time before a pretty brutal washout here down to $17. You see some big volume come in here after earnings, and that really kind of kick-started the turnaround for Palantir, and NEO is going to look very similar. See, we tried to get back over here, couldn't get above the 21, came back lower, tried to get above it again, couldn't do it, came back lower, bounced off the 200, ran into a declining 50, got washed out all the way down to 30 here, and have started trending higher, got back above all those key moving averages, and actually was up 10% today. So on the flip side of the equation, let's look at FCX, which I just showed you. What are we seeing here with FCX, right? We're seeing a peak right here at 46.10, came back, bounced a little bit, then comes down, breaks the 21, breaks the 50, and sells off pretty hard and tries to rally back up. But what you notice here is a lot heavier volume on the selling, lighter volume on the bounce back, and ultimately reverses right into the 21-day exponential moving average, makes a lower low today following Friday's action, and actually gets back below the 8-day. Nucor, I mentioned we got stopped out of this one. Doesn't look nearly as bad as FCX, but comes all the way down to the 50, breaks the 21, never really makes any legitimate effort to get back above it, breaks the 50, flirts with it here, stays above it, but never able to get above this declining 21-day exponential moving average and breaking lower. So the reality is, and I tried to phrase this in a sentence that makes the most sense here, when you're looking for a change in character or attempting to identify one, it's really as simple as, is the stock able to get through areas of resistance? Do those areas of resistance then flip to support? Or are those declining moving averages just constantly rejecting your stock? Is it going in a downtrend and not able to break out of it? And so, as we mentioned with some of the stocks that have started to turn around, Palantir, for example, this stock broke out of a downtrend line. This stock pushed through levels of previous resistance that it could not get through, like the 50, and has continued higher. And now, on the flip side of the equation, we're seeing FCX, which did really well riding the 21 up for a long time, now having trouble getting back above the 21. So it's just a change in the sentiment of the stock, a change in the appetite for demand to push it higher through levels of resistance or to new all-time highs. And we're seeing that change in some of these areas. And last one, real quick here, I'm going to look at these. I mentioned QCLN and TAN, and it looks pretty similar. You can see QCLN just not able to get back above the 21 here, ran right into it, comes down lower, finally gets above it, but these candles aren't encouraging here. Above it for one day, breaks it the next day, continues lower, and then just like we saw with Palantir and NEO, runs into a declining 50 and really gets washed out, and now has pushed through the 50-day moving average, back above the 8, the 200, etc. Conversely, if you look at CPER, the copper ETF, it looks the opposite. It made a peak right here on 511, comes all the way back down to the 21, tries to bounce, ultimately ends up going lower and breaking it again, breaks the 50, and then same thing that you saw with FCX, tried to make a rally on lighter volume and just not really able to get anything going. SLX is the steel ETF. It looks relatively similar. Tried to get back above the 21, was able to get one day above it, and really no dice, not able to get any kind of continuation going. So just something I noticed, that a lot of these commodity value industrial type plays are starting to resemble some of the struggles that growth stocks went through from mid-February, early February into the beginning of May of this year. So a little bit of a flip in regards to where the leadership is in the market right now. So I know I went a little long running through those examples, but I think it's important because you want to pay attention to that, and especially in a year like 2021, where it's been a year of rotations in and out of value and in and out of growth. It's something you want to monitor closely when you see a possible shift in leadership or a change in character. in a specific style, sector, or a stock. You got to take note of those things. And that's going to wrap it up for me, everybody. Thank you all for listening. Like I said, if you have any questions, please just send me an email. I'd be happy to answer. But hope you all have a great week. I will see you on the Thursday video as well as the weekly podcast at the end of the week. Thanks, everyone.